This action, this item has to do with the taking of the F-100 by the Mojave Spaceport under color of law. Basically, moves around, which basically we're telling you is both wrong and wrong and a lot of other things, but basically our PowerPoint here is in just the case though is basically we want to get the F-100 in Pete Knight home where it belongs and where we've always intended to go.
Just for clarification, do you represent the U.S. Air Power Museum?
I represent Mr. Soest.
Okay, because our agreement was with the U.S. Air Power Museum. So,
Mr. Lobby, I don't know that you got the floor here. I'm presenting it.
Well, you said you intended, and I'm wondering what you mean by you intended, since there was no agreement with you.
We'll get to that, Mr. Lobby. You'll understand.
Looking forward to it.
Excuse me, is there any way we can provide this gentleman with a microphone so it can be properly recorded?
I'll speak up louder if that helps. Could that pick up on there?
It will be recorded.
Bottom line is the gist of this case is about getting these MPs to the Pete Knight Veterans Home in Lancaster. That's the first page of the PowerPoint. The common goal is the F-100 needs to be painted and placed there. It hasn't been painted yet. Dean Soest has to paint. Primary finish is the one who's been doing and coordinating the work. For those of you who don't know, or if you didn't know that Mr. Soest is has been yeah, it sounds now. You liked it like that? All right, Mr. Soest has. If you didn't know, certainly Mojave Air and Spaceport should have known, since they were notified at least in June of this year, that Mr. Soest was the person in charge of the F-100 aircraft, actually F-100 museum piece, and has been for a number of years. He's been the one in charge of coordinating its, pulling it out of the dirt, refurbishing it, buying new parts for it, getting it all set up, and getting it ready to be transferred over to the Pete Knight Veterans Home in Lancaster.
I have a question. We're just sitting here listening, we ask questions?
You can ask questions, it's your hearing.
Can somebody please point out Mr. Soest?
Sure, Mr. Soest is here. It was forcibly removed from in front of his hangar by the Mojave Air and Spaceport with the assistance of the Kern County Sheriff's Department in violation of the law. We have an agreement with the Mojave Air and Spaceport, and let me see if I can get that. It basically says there, unless there's a, and that's the purpose of this hearing is, unless there's an immediate safety concern, the applicant, that's Dean Soest, will be allowed to appeal to the Mojave Air and Spaceport Board of Directors before termination or revocation shall become effective. When the Mojave Air and Spaceport stole the F-100 from Mr. Soest, under color of law, they also revoked his access. And there's no reason for taking his access because they have a civil dispute with Mr. Soest. If you recall, the reason it was revoked, to my understanding, is because when the Stu Witt and Kevin and the rest of them went over and stole his airplane, actually the museum piece from his front of his hangar, they did it with the sheriff arresting Mr. Soest and throwing him in jail for tonight. I don't know if you were aware of that. And he accused him of Penal Code Section 599D, I believe, which I don't think you'll see that charge being brought against Mr. Soest. The bottom line is, let's go ahead and start from the beginning. The letter of July 21st, 2011.
Where's this at?
It's item number 1 on your listed handout. It's a letter from Steve Knight, then an assemblyman of the California legislature. The first paragraph is probably the most important. It says, I write to formally and respectfully request the indefinite loan of an obsolete U.S. Air Force F-100 jet aircraft for a public display at the William J. Pete Knight Veterans Home in Lancaster, California. The next item for you.
Okay, and what are you?
let's go to the next one, because that's the one where you're a little more focused, because the important part about that, it's an obsolete aircraft. It's not an aircraft at all. It's a museum piece. And it's recognized in the very first letter to the district. Bill of sale, December 2011. And I didn't highlight your stuff, I highlighted mine, but the first paragraph has to do with transfer. The district hereby transfers to the museum for the benefit of the California Department of Veterans Affairs, and museum accepts from the district for the benefit of the California Department of Veterans Affairs the F-100 aircraft, serial number F53-1688, the aircraft. And if we go down a little further there is a miscellaneous. Actually, if we can get to the conditions at the very end of that, paragraph 2, just before paragraph 3, it says, if any of these conditions are not met, the aircraft shall immediately revert to the district without further notice and at no cost to the district. Whatever that means. Paragraph 4, miscellaneous. Notices under this agreement shall be written and delivered personally to the person to whom the notice is to be given, or mailed postage prepaid at the address stated below. Unfortunately, Mr. Dietzel, William Dietzel, who signed this agreement, he passed away, I believe, in March of this year. We get to item number 3, March 24, 2013. His daughter, Cindy Tomzak, wrote a memo to Venus Andrade, the California Veterans Affairs, explaining that if you look at the first paragraph at the last sentence, our original intention still stands to restore and place the F-100 on display at the Veterans Home in Lancaster, California. In recent conversations with Bill Dietzel and Dean Soest, restoration manager for the F-100, they informed me that at this time there's a large amount owed to Dean Soest of National Aircraft Services. And she signs it as the board member, director. And item number 4.
Where's the signature? Oh, this is an email.
Must be an email. It's Cindy@shootingstarscoaching.com. Yeah, you're right. There's no signature.
It doesn't look like an email. It looks like a letter.
I'm not sure exactly what it is.
It's a signature.
It's in memo form, and that's, I don't know. It's I would call it a letter. It's got an address to Venus Andrade, Department of Veterans Affairs.
All right.
But at any rate, it doesn't have her regular address. National Aircraft Services invoice is item number 4. As you can see, Mr. Soest has been working on that at least since January 2012. He's not been working on it by himself. He's had lots of help. With here today, retired from the United States Navy and an A4 pilot, Jim Marison. Stand up and say hello, Jim.
Hello?
His son, Todd Marison.
He's
Okay, he stepped out. Doug Strickfaden Sr. and Doug Strickfaden Jr., as well as Tom Smith. And they've all been working on the aircraft with Dean, and Dean's been coordinating all that and getting it ready by the end of March, I believe, and he did some work since then. Right now it's about $68,000 altogether. Item number 5. Following the incident, Mr. Soest went ahead and filed a mechanic's lien statement with the FAA, and that's there for your review as well. Item number 6, for those of you who don't know, or you probably do know, that the first time that we had an opportunity to oust Mr. Soest from the district was about May 3rd, 2013, was an incident with an aircraft. Got away that was being towed in a DC-8, I believe, and ran into a John Tharp's hangar. At any rate, that was used as a reason why you can't have an access badge because your tow bar broke. But anyway, we had a lawsuit over that, and we settled it, and was filed on May 13th. That's important chronologically wise, if we remember. What we're getting to is a letter dated May 28th. And the next letter, you'll see, is a letter dated May 28th. And this is the letter that on September 10th of this year, not in accordance with our agreement, in violation of our agreement, Kevin went with that letter and presented that to Mr. Soest.
Which agreement are you referring to?
The agreement that's between the one we're here on, the operations permit, and the settlement of the lawsuit.
How did that violate the agreement?
The agreement states specifically his point of contact is with Stu Witt. It's not with Kevin. It's not with anybody else. June 26, 2013, I had a discussion with Mr. Witt and then wrote a letter to Mr. Navi regarding one of the things that Mr. Soest was interested in, and that was getting that F-100 painted as part of resolving the litigation. And that was, he understood you had a paint booth here, and I see that's on your agenda item as far as negotiating a lease for that hangar. But at any rate, he wanted to get the F-100 painted in June of 2013. Obviously, I had no knowledge that of the May 28, 2013 letter, as neither did Mr. Soest. Item number 9 is my letter to Scott Navi with the signed operations permit, pointing out that we dismissed the lawsuit and that his access would be approved immediately, and that the triplets application was supposed to be approved as well. And I believe all that happened. Behind number 9 is the applications permit, and you'll see that the terms and conditions, special terms and conditions underneath that. I'm not sure if this is the right one or not, but basically the now that I look at it, I thought we had a cleaner version, but we eventually went with the access badge, would issue the badge, and that the point of contact would be only one person, and that would be Stu Witt.
I think we actually agreed to 3 people.
Well, none of them was ever Kevin, and Kevin is the one who delivered the letter. Is an email from Cindy at Shooting Stars to Dean Soest, telling him that on September 10th, it was the first time she was notified that there was this letter out there from May 28th, that where they wanted to take the aircraft back, actually the museum piece back. And she said that, sure, let them have it. But she didn't ever get a copy of the letter until the following day. The reason that's important is that Stu Witt caused Mr. Soest to be arrested on September 10th, based on the May 28th letter, which again had never been presented to. And you can sit there and laugh, I suppose, if you want, Mr. Rutan, but that's
Yeah, you're making all kinds of wild accusations. They're
wild?
not substantiated by anything you have here.
Okay.
So we're just going to go ahead and let that go.
All right, I appreciate that.
You're welcome to finish your statement.
Thank you. If you've got a problem with the way I'm presenting it, I just hope you don't hold it against Mr. Soest.
Well, I do have one question now that I have the floor.
Go ahead.
These individuals that were they volunteer labor or were they paid labor?
Well, let me let you. They can tell you exactly. They can speak
I
much
understand
better.
there was a lot of volunteer work supposed to be done by veterans to have this on the street.
Jim, you want to speak to that? Jim Marizon.
Some was volunteer, some was paid.
Yeah, specifically the 2 gentlemen here.
Yeah, I'm a veteran. I was a volunteer.
You got no payment or expected any payment
No.
for your labor?
No.
I was a volunteer also. I was never paid in any way, shape, or form.
And you were never expected to be paid?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you for your service.
Tom, do you want to speak to that? Tom Smith?
Yeah, it doesn't matter whether it's paid or not paid. It doesn't matter.
You were working on it regardless.
Huh?
Were you working on the project?
Yeah.
And were you paid to work on the project as well as not paid?
No, I wasn't paid.
We're not paid. Okay.
Paid or not paid doesn't matter.
And what was your expectation for the project, Mr. Marizon?
To the old soldiers' home.
In Lancaster?
Yeah, the only place I ever heard that the aircraft was going to go eventually.
Mail to the United States Air Museum in Fresno, indicating action of reverting ownership to ECAT had begun. I let him know that I'd never received, even with all the mail being forwarded to our Nebraska address. He emailed me over a copy from my records as of 9/11/13. I did state that this information would not be given to you by the museum prior to September 10th due to the museum never receiving notification. And then finally, on The last item, number 11, is her letter to Mr. Witt. It's dated September 10th, but if you'll see in the back, she actually created it September 11th, saying, "The aircraft is now yours. We're relinquishing all rights to the F-100. There's reference in hopes that the district will consider placement of the aircraft at the Veterans Home." Now, in addition to that, there's I believe there's an email from Karina saying that to Cindy Tomczak saying the aircraft is actually supposed to go to the Pete Knight Museum. We're not sending it to the Mojave Air and Space Museum. And I think she corrected herself earlier today, but obviously the letter speaks for itself. That's what it said. What it says. With that chronology, basically, I think I've already gone over everything. The summary, letter, and then it comes down to what this hearing. We're leading up to about 2:38 p.m. on September 10th. You have evidence from Ms. Somzak that Mr. Soest was in control. Okay, getting to 2:30 on that day, it's quite clear that Mr. Soest was still acting as the person preparing the museum piece, that Cindy Tomczak was in charge of the museum, and that there had been no contact with Cindy Tomczak whatsoever regarding the Mojave Aerospace or East Kern Air District or whatever title was taking the museum piece back. So now that you bring it up, one thing it said about, before we get to termination, it said basically that, let's read the whole letter.
Just the termination part's fine. That's all we need. Because that's your argument.
No, the argument goes beyond, well, there's more information there I'm supposed to present to you. The now 2-year-old $27.2 million Veterans Home of California is named in the memory of the late Colonel William J. Pete Knight, who flew F-100s, and that's why they needed the F-100. Flew F-100s in the Vietnam War and later achieved international fame as the test pilot who flew an X-15 rocket research aircraft higher and faster than anyone before and since.
The bill of sale, not the letter, just the bill of sale. That's what we're interested in.
Okay. Conditions. This, if you look at paragraph 2, this can transfer to upon within 6 months of this stated bill of sale. The aircraft shall be ready and placed on static display at the William J. Pete Knight Veterans Home of California, located in Lancaster, California. And ownership of the aircraft transferred from the museum to the California Department of Veterans Affairs, the CDVA. A plaque shall be placed at the display acknowledging the donation from the district, with wording shall be mutually agreed upon and acceptable to the parties. The aircraft shall be placed on static display only, at no time and under no circumstances, and this is important, shall the aircraft be restored to a condition in which it may be flown. This is particularly important in that, on another basis, but we ever get back to that again. And then, of course, if any of the conditions are not met, the aircraft shall immediately revert to the district without further notice and at no cost to the district.
So were there any conditions that weren't met there?
And Mr. Navi, as you know, the...
Didn't happen within 6 months, right?
I appreciate that. You're good at your math there, yeah.
That was my question.
So
June of 2012, the airplane reverts back to the district.
No. There were several extensions given by Mr. Stewart himself, my understanding, oral extensions, and that's obviously as of March of 2013, there's correspondence from the director of the museum, the new director of the museum, saying, "Yeah, we're still going forward. We're going to get that up there." We ran into a problem with the financing coming from Mr. Knight's office. So obviously that was very well much intended. And
Do you have any of those letters?
Yeah, it's right there.
Extending the 6 months.
Oh, do I have, no, there aren't any, I don't understand, I understand there are not any letters extending it. And a lot of things he's got on his computer he's got to go back and dig up on. Certainly he doesn't have the correspondence between the museum and the district because he's not the person who created that correspondence.
So you're saying there is no documentation?
I'm not saying there, to my knowledge, there isn't any.
Okay, so there isn't any documentation to extend that?
There is.
Where is it?
I think the actions speak louder than words. There's my letter of June 26th.
Is that part of your brief?
I put it in there, yes.
How does your letter of June 26th, are you authorized to extend the 6 months?
My letter of June 26th put your attorney, Mr. Nally, on notice that we wanted to get the F-100 painted. If in fact, and I guess hopefully there's documentation from you, from your board saying that you wanted to take it back, that they're saying that you wanted to take it back. I know we spoke to you on May 21st, and after we spoke to you on May 21st, when I was here on May 21st, I didn't see anything on the agenda about F-100. Maybe I'm wrong.
It wasn't.
It wasn't on the agenda,
No.
so all of a sudden, May 28th, there's this letter out there that's not been agendized, and there's no written documentation all of a sudden about a revocation. So I'm not sure about that either, as far as where that letter was created, or if it was created May
So it
28th.
really is all rumor then?
No. I mean, you can certainly inquire Mr. Witt later on, I suppose, and ask him if he didn't make those oral extensions.
No, we're asking you. You're making the presentation.
My presentation is my understanding, 4 verbal extensions from Mr. Witt regarding completion of the aircraft.
Okay, so what I've heard is that return to us was in effect.
It wasn't in effect until September 11th,
No. Why do you say that?
because that's what Ms. Tomzak indicated. She didn't even get written notice of that until September
When was
11th.
notice effective?
The notice was effective when received.
No.
That was not until the September 11th.
Is that what it says?
Well, what says?
All right, let me ask you this.
The notice is supposed to be given at address is stated. There's no address is stated. That was an oversight on somebody's part, but there was no place for notice to be sent. So, but somehow they knew where to send it to.
I got a couple of questions.
Sure.
So, the airplane, regardless, one way or the other, the airplane either belongs to the museum or to the Air and Spaceport.
Right now, I believe it belongs to the Air and Spaceport. The museum has given up on it.
Okay. What do you have, anything that shows that Mr. Soest had authority to do, to move the plane, has any ownership of the plane, has anything to do with the plane?
Okay. In front of you, you have his lien. You also have his.
So that was done after.
You also have his work. It's about 5 pages long. His worksheet. What do you call that?
I saw a bill of things that were bought.
Yeah.
Is there some document from the museum, is there some document from the airport, or is there some document from somebody who owns the plane that says Mr. Soest is authorized to do anything?
I believe, yes, there is.
I saw one thing that said that Mr. Soest was the main guy for leading the restoration effort, but it didn't say he's given possession of the plane or anything like that. So I'm trying to find anything that says Mr. Soest was allowed to do whatever he wanted to do with the plane.
I mean, from the museum itself, is what you're saying.
It's either got it from the airport or from the museum, because that's the only 2 people that at any point in time own the airplane. So do we have anything that says that?
Well, we have the correspondence from the museum itself indicating he's in charge of the airplane. Yeah.
No, it just says they're in charge of the restoration.
In charge of the restoration, and obviously he's not going to restore the aircraft without having possession of it. But if you need that information provided, that's something we can certainly ask Ms. Tomzak to provide. It's something we hadn't thought about before, and I appreciate you bringing that up. And it's certainly that I don't think there'll be any problem providing it unless she can't find her father's things.
That's, he needs to get paid for his work. Okay, who are you suggesting paid?
Well, first of all, I believe that there was an agreement with Mr. Knight to get that to you, and that there was supposed to be someone that was supposed to raise funds to get that done.
Okay, so the board has no jurisdiction over that at all.
Well, the only place you might be responsible is that you're claiming that you own it since May 28th. If you did the work that he did from May 28th forward, you'd owe him for it. If you didn't own it, if you didn't have possession of it until September 11th, obviously you haven't done anything with it. Although I do understand that that some parts have been taken from his hangar, and we understand it's been taken by the Mojave Air and Spaceport. If that's true or not, if it is true, then you'll own the parts back. Clearly, each one of these men and gentlemen can testify to the fact that Mr. Soest purchased and paid for the landing gear, and purchased and paid for a new canopy on that the F-100, and that's all stuff he's looking to be reimbursed for sure. That's something that I mean, that's obviously his property.
That's a court matter.
It is, and that's the whole point. The whole point of
Item
having,
number 2 has got nothing to do with the board either. paint the plane, go to the veterans home, that's all?
Well, it does in one respect. I mean, we're still looking, we have, you have Dean Sosa.
Doesn't need to be, does have nothing to do with Mr. So's,
Access badge,
access
correct?
badge?
None of this really has anything to do with the access badge. He should never have had the access badge revoked, and that's over a dispute regarding a museum piece. That's exactly what we have. We have a dispute regarding a museum piece for which Mr. Witt uses an excuse to revoke his access badge. Mr. Sosa was preparing the F-100, my understanding, to take it over to, once he saw the letter from Kevin, he said, well, you know, I haven't been told anything about that. I've been trying to get the place over at Fox for a long time. We'll go ahead and move over to Fox, and we'll get it set up, and we'll get it painted over there, because we're obviously not going to get hangar number 70 over here.
So
And
he knew the district had taken ownership of it again, and then he decided to move it to Fox?
no, the
So it
district,
was after Kevin met with him?
the ownership of the property belonged to Mr. Soest. If you read California Civil Code section 1261,
I think you're wrong. I remember it's been held unconstitutional.
.22,
So
there's an aircraft lien on that. You can't take something
it's been
from,
held unconstitutional.
The lien was put on the airplane after.
he had,
He was arrested on the 10th,
on the 10th of September, that's,
the lien on the 11th.
the federal lien was placed on the 11th. California lien's been on it for a long time.
Do we have a copy of that? California lien?
I believe it's on the aircraft. I believe he had a paper with that when you took and collected from it.
We don't have anything in the package or so.
I can,
And you have a written agreement
we do.
with the owner of the aircraft?
We have an estimate.
Authorizing them to put the lien on the aircraft?
We do have you have to provide an estimate. We have an estimate for $35,000 to get the work done.
Sent by Mr. Dietzel.
I don't have to be signed by him, but it is something.
Written agreement, business and professions code.
Yeah. But we do have
I'll give
documents
from
summary.
35 to 68.
Well, I think it ran a little more expensive than he thought. But at any rate, during that time, I think he was, my understanding is he kept on getting approval from Mr. Dietzel to do the extra work, which is something.
Senator Knight was going to pay for it.
Senator Knight was not going to pay for it out of his pocket, no. Senator Knight's salary would not allow for that even when he was LAPD.
This seems fairly simple to me. Maybe I'm missing something in the sky. You can tell me if I'm missing something. But we're here to decide if Mr. Soest can get his privileges back on the airport. You're making the case that Mr. Soest shouldn't have had his privileges pulled because he was doing what he was supposed to do.
Exactly.
And the airport is saying, no, he wasn't doing what he was supposed to do. Does Mr. Soest admit to trying to remove the airplane from the airport?
Mr. Soest can't admit to anything at this point, because there's still an investigation going on. But Mr. Soest's position has always been that he's always been, and you can talk to let me let you to ask Mr. Doug Strickfat and what the intention was with the F-100 long before September 10th, within a month. Doug, you want to tell him about that?
Sure, the intent was to get the airplane together and get it painted and get it down to the VA home where it was supposed to go. That was the whole intention of this whole thing of the restoration.
And within a month before this September 10th action, had you worked on the aircraft removing any parts to prepare for that?
Not really. There was no really big parts taken.
Well, what did you do the last month and a half prior to September?
So what we did, we took the horizontals off to get them ready to go down to Fox Field because we were going to take the airplane apart and take it down there. The wing tips were taken off because you couldn't have the wings tips on them, could be too wide to get on a trailer. You know, it's just odds and ends were taken off to get ready to move the airplane to Fox Field for painting.
Soest was notified of that.
No, he wasn't. No, he didn't. You can take that tack if you want either way. I don't care how you understand the facts. If you want to say that it went to the airport on May 28th, that's fine. But the fact is, Mr. Soest had no awareness of that until September. He didn't see the letter until September. Yeah.
Okay, so, but regardless, if either way, and they're either belong to the museum or belong to the airport, and the airport maintains it belongs to the airport. So Mr. Soest isn't going to say anything today because of other things. So the bottom line is, I don't see what the issue is.
Well, the issue is he needs to get his access back. I guess the other thing, in case you're not aware of it, is Mr. Soest has been has had his business here for some 15, 20 years.
So I'm aware of that.
Okay, and that he has a number of aircraft here that needs to finish working up on that are in for annual, that are in different states of disrepair or back to repair. That he last week, I believe, his main employer, CAM, fired him because he couldn't be on the airport doing the job that he needs to be doing, providing the DC-8s. And he's supposed to be, I believe, repairing one of them for somebody, a buyer on one of them. All these things.
Sorry, Scott, what were the conditions of when Mr. Soest's access was restored after the accident? What were the conditions that were placed on that?
He was limited to areas where he could go. He
Unescorted, escorted, what was it?
unescorted. There were certain areas on the airport, 3 areas that he could go to unescorted to do his work. That was the restriction.
All right, and then was there a provision in there or anything about a future event or anything about what would cause him to lose the access in the future?
Yeah, a security safety event or a breach of the ops agreement.
And we have neither here. We have him, he'd been working on the F-100, I don't know if you know where it's located. He had moved the F-100 from inside his hangar a few months prior to that out, about 100 feet. And at this point, he's moving it back toward the hangar. He moved it back toward his hangar, that's where he had it.
Madam Chair, question. Counselor, what date did the airplane move from Mr. Soest's hangar to its spot on the map?
Where it was before he moved it right back to his hangar, you mean? I'm not aware. I'd have to check with him. But it'd been out there for, I believe, a couple months for sure. But the point is, it got there because Mr. Soest moved it there and set it there. That wasn't anything that the airport exercised any control over. And when he moved it back, he's the one that moved it back. It wasn't the airport that moved it over.
Madam Chair, a follow-up. Counselor, what is the monthly rate of a hangar paid to the owner of the hangar that Mr. Soest was renting to restore the F-100?
What I can tell right here, he's paid a total of $11,000 in hangar rent. It looked like about $1,000 a month. It looks like it went down to $750 a month at one point in time.
What is the rate he pays the owner of the hangar?
What is the rate he pays the owner of the hangar that...
That is the question.
There's more than one hangar he has. It looks like he's got one for parts storage.
Does it take more than one hangar to house this particular airplane?
It looks like, and I'm speculating because I don't know, is that there's 2 hangars for us. There's one for parts storage and there's one for the aircraft itself. And it looks from this, it looks like he kept it in the hangar until about March of 2013.
What was the total amount invoiced in the Senator Knight invoice for hangar?
He was invoiced $15,000 for 15 months, January 2012 to March 2013. And then, it looks just like for the security hangar rent and parts storage was $750 a month, and then forward. So obviously it looks like it was moved. I would say, to answer your first question, it sounds to me like the aircraft was moved March 2013. I would say. Pretty well documented here. You have something else?
I like your date.
If you have something else, I'll be happy to look at that, but that's what it looks like charges are for.
Why do you think Mr. Soest needs to get his access back? Not because he needs to do his job, but why does he?
Well, for one thing, he hasn't done
deserves to have his access.
He had, by moving the F-100 over there and for final preparation to move to Fox, he had done nothing wrong. He had not breached any security.
Well, you just said he moved the airplane for taking it to Fox.
Exactly.
So he did intend to take it to Fox.
He did intend it to, yeah, it's been the intention all along, long before September 10th.
But this was after Kevin gave him the letter stating that the airport owned the airplane, the F-100.
After Kevin gave him a letter that even Karina says incorrectly states that the airport owned the airport, yeah.
And he intended to take it off the airport.
Intended it.
And he knew that the airport owned it.
He intended to take it and move it over to the Pete Knight Veterans Home. That's ultimately where he wanted to go, yes.
No, he was taking it off the airport to take it to Fox Field, even though the airport owned it, and he did not have the airport's permission.
My understanding of law, Mr. Navi, is you don't own something just because you say, here's a piece of paper, I'm revoking the thing. If you didn't make your payments on your car, for some reason you missed a payment, and the repo guy's there, he's hooking up your car, and you say, no, you can't take my car,
Let me ask you,
he can still take it.
Are you representing the museum?
But if you're sitting in the car,
Are you representing the museum?
you can't take the car, and that's exactly the situation
Are
you
you
have here.
representing the museum?
I've not been asked to represent the museum.
Okay, thank you.
We're here before Mr. Soest's application
That's what I thought.
to get back his permit, access permit, which was revoked, obviously for no safety or security reason, but that I haven't heard from any of your people. I don't know that at the hearing I'm allowed to put anybody on the stand and questioning them, but the bottom line is, what is the access? What is the purpose of the access badge? And
Why did we deny access?
Notwithstanding Mr. Landsgaard's characterization of the aircraft as a museum piece, where his disputing for the museum, even though he doesn't represent them, that we didn't own it, Mr. Soest was arrested for felony intent to dispossess an owner of their aircraft, and those charges are pending with the district attorney. I spoke with him this morning, and so
you spoke with
this
him?
isn't the first
You spoke with the
time-
district attorney this morning, and he said he's filing charges, or he's still looking?
I just said I spoke with him this morning.
Okay, so there are no charges
So-
pending against him,
Uh,
other than what the...
This isn't the first time Mr. Soest has been, I believe Mr. Landsgaard has been involved in a dispute with Mr. Soest where he took someone's airplane and towed it to a hangar and stored it in the hangar, if I'm not mistaken. And so this is a series of events that have occurred involving Mr. Soest that cause disruptions at the airport, take up staff time, and as with the Sharps and the DC-8 that he grounded out north of the runway, presents safety concerns. It's a pattern of conduct that we have seen here at the airport.
The pattern of conduct, now we're going back to another case where
Mr. Soest's current status is he can come on Mojave Air and Spaceport outside of the airplane line or not?
he can come on with the security, I believe security's letting him on.
He cannot come inside the fence. Security has allowed him in and stayed with him a couple times, but he's not allowed inside the fence. He doesn't have access inside the fence.
Madam Chair, for clarification, I have additional question for council. Council, you indicated that Mr. Soest, I believe, quote, was fired from his employer, CAM.
That's my understanding.
Can you tell me when that occurred? Because our most current correspondence indicated that he was a representative of CAM. And that was as of Friday. Has something changed?
Outside with the camp sends you something, sends you something on Friday saying he's still employed by it?
I have no knowledge of what you just said, so if he's no longer employed by CAM, then
My understanding is he got axed last week. Friday would be like the last day. And if they re-employed him, that's a, I don't know.
Was he an employee of CAM?
My understanding, he's either an employee or independent contractor.
Because you've been using employment terms, so I wasn't sure.
Well, he's an EMP AI, whatever EMP and AIs do for aircraft owners, that's what he is. Certainly, if you were to take your vehicle or your airplane into an AP to have him work on it, not your employee, it's more of an independent contractor. But yeah, I didn't mean to speak on the technical jargon.
just curious, but is an AMP required in your characterization to work on an airplane that's not intended for flight?
Is he required to? No. Go ahead with your question, Mr. Lieutenant, sorry.
Oh, yes, but
Are you
it's,
bidding on this? Are you bidding on
Yeah, yes.
No, I haven't been sent
A public board meetings can always.
Already video.
Yes.
Okay.
oh, I'm interested in the genesis of this invoice. What was it, $68,000, something like that?
Yes.
Was, as each month went by, was there an invoice given to the museum?
I don't think so.
How did they find, when did they find out that there was this much of a bill levied against this? Was it done monthly? When was this bill submitted? I have the feeling that maybe all of a sudden they received a bill that was way more than anybody expected.
I don't think so. My
Can you answer
understanding.
the question?
My understanding is that Mr. Diesel died in March of 2013. He would be the best one to tell us, and he's not here.
Well, we have the contractor.
We have the contractor, Mr. Soest, who could, and he's going to have to help
Well,
with that.
he's the one that's interested in the bill, the $68,000.
And
Surely he would know when the bill was submitted, monthly, bi-monthly, or all of a sudden, out of the blue, the whole thing was dumped on. somebody that already died. Can you answer that question?
I think if you'll look at the March 2013 letter from Ms. Tomzak, Mr. Diesel's daughter, the current head of the museum, she indicated she knew there was a large bill then, and that it had been building up. And my understanding of the course of conduct is Mr. Diesel was told about the additional work that needed to be done, the additional parts that needed to be purchased, the landing gear.
That's not my question. My question was there an invoice submitted monthly, bi-monthly, for the work that was occurred? And you haven't answered that.
My answer to that question is, no, there was no monthly detail done monthly, just notification by phone.
Okay, where was the very first time that they were notified that there was a bill of $68,000?
$68,000 bill, I understand, was just this month. It was $62,000 prior to that, $61,000.
In that neighborhood, $60,000,
Yeah.
give or take, bill. When was that first invoice to somebody? When did somebody first find out that they were committed to $68,000? It wasn't done monthly or quarterly?
I suspect that, again, I'd have to talk to Ms. Tomzak, which I have not done, and I apologize for that.
Well, maybe you could confer with your client. You should certainly know
When the first bill, whether she, when she became aware of the bill, this particular bill obviously looks like it was prepared a long time in order. As the, if you look at the purchases as the orders come in, these are, $20, $35. Go ahead.
Counselor, you're not answering the question. The thing is, if you're going to do work for somebody, it's a normal practice that each month that goes by, you submit a bill, an invoice, to whoever you think is supposed to be responsible for paying that. My question was, when was those invoices formally submitted? Was there just, my feeling is that there was this one big lump sum that it was officially invoiced based on the training, and a lot of people probably weren't aware of that, so they're shocked. When were the invoices made to the responsible person, to the museum? How often was that done? Did they have an indication that this type of a bill was being generated?
Well, they obviously had an indication this type of bill was being generated.
Okay,
the March
the formal
24th
invoice?
The March 24th letter from Cindy Tomzak to the Department of Veterans Affairs, or the email, or whatever the memo, indicates that she knew that. And
No, that's not the question. Counselor, you're not answering. When was the first formal invoice given that somebody knew that they had a $67,000 invoice? And to who was that given? And I'd like to see the document.
well, that my understanding is there's been at least one invoice. I don't know how many, when it was submitted. And
Okay, so you don't know the answer to that?
I don't know the answer, no. And I don't think Mr. Soest knows the exact date that an invoice was submitted. He can go back and look on his computer.
Can I assume then that this wasn't, that the first time they knew about it is when they had a maintenance lien formally against that?
No, I don't think so.
Would I be wrong to assume that?
You'd be wrong, because if you look at the March letter from Cindy Tomzak,
See, still not answering my question. It's a very simple question. Was there a progressive invoices given?
my understanding,
Yes or no?
my understanding answer is no.
Okay, so then the next question is, when was they notified formally that this is an invoice that I expect somebody to pay for this? When was that done?
My understanding, March 2013,
Okay, and how many years did you work on this?
since January of 2012.
Okay, so all of that work was done, these bills were built up, and all of a sudden, this late, there was one invoice made for it.
I believe that
Somebody who had already died.
he died in March of 2013. That's why I would speculate that's why the invoice was generated. Say, hey, Cindy, this is what I've been doing on it. Bill's been aware of it, and I'm keeping him apprised of it. But he's gone now.
See, that's all in the rumor, Counsel.
I know, because
Okay,
I'm trusting me to speculate.
I want to know if this was if there was an invoice formally presented to the person who was supposed to pay for it on a regular basis. And you're telling me that there wasn't.
That's correct.
So at some time, all of a sudden, somebody was levied with a $60-some-thousand bill that was probably a lot more than what they anticipated, and had no opportunity to monitor that thing as the bill was built up. It seems like a funny way to do business.
I don't know that it was much more than they anticipated. I do know that verbally, Mr. Diesel was apprised of
Okay, so
the
you
costs
can't,
going up.
I'm going to take that as you don't know and you can't answer my question. Thank you.
Jim Marizan, could you tell the board of directors how long you've known Dean and how well you trust Dean and why?
In 1991, we were working with a Draken down in Tucson. We had a problem with a external fuel tank that wouldn't transfer, and one of the people down there said, well, call up this gent, he'll be out here tomorrow. That was Dean Soest. And since 1991, on and off, I've had occasion to have Dean work for me, and to my knowledge, he was always honest and fair and very, the manual that I gave him to figure out why the tank wouldn't transfer was in Swedish. And he called up, I don't know, my wife was Swedish also, and they were translating things, and it worked the next day. And that's been my experience.
How did you want to add anything to that?
I'm Jim's son, so of course just by association I've come to just know Dean over the years. He's actually, the positive thing I have to say about Dean is when I was out of work, he gave me jobs. So you know, it's I've never dealt business-wise with him too much other than just working for him. I did work on an F-100. I think it was only for like a week, but I was working on it in his hangar.
Doug, do you want to add anything to what you know about Dean and well, did you have an interaction? You might want to tell the board about the interaction you had with Stu Witt on the September 10th.
Yeah, when we come out, I was under the impression that they gave him until like 7 o'clock that evening to get the aircraft off the airport, or they were going to repossess it. And he asked me to come out to help. So we did. My son came out with me. And when we got here, there were police officers. They wouldn't let me talk to him. Mr. Witt come up, wanted to know who I was, and I showed him my badge and everything. And he wanted to know where the stolen parts were. And I had no idea what he was talking about. So, I mean,
And how long have you known Dean?
I've known Dean for, I've known of him since the early 80s. I didn't really met him, but I started on working on the F-100 in about April of last year. And that's why I've got to know him. He's good people. I mean, you know, he gets out there and he busts his butt just like everybody else does. He's a good person to work for. So that's it.
Doug Jr., do you want to say something? And you also want to read the letter?
Yeah, I have a letter from Mr. Soest to the board, if that's okay, if I can read it for you. Sure, this is to the Mojave Airspace Board of Directors. World War II, Korea, Vietnam, Panama Desert Storm. These wars and conflicts that our country has proven that we stand for things, and that is freedom and liberties for all people. My liberties have been trampled upon, as well as my freedom to conduct my life and to provide jobs for people that need them in this town. The board members here all took an oath when they were sworn in to uphold the Constitution, which includes the Bill of Rights, against anyone who would deny those rights. And I ask, why have these members turned a blind eye to my rights to earn a living, have access to my property and my customers' property? Why did they allow the airport manager to act against one of his tenants in this manner? To discriminate against him and to single him out is just wrong, and this board does nothing to correct the situation. The situation on September 10th was just wrong on behalf of the manager and the people under his control, but nobody intervened from the board to stop an injustice. I have been locked out of my property and business for over 3 weeks. I've had to let all of my employees go until I can reopen our doors, so they have been affected as far as income as I have. You have allowed him to affect numerous people with his actions. Not only have I and my employees been affected, but my mother-in-law has also. She's 95 on a fixed income, and since my wife passed away, I've helped to support her as well. But now I can't, and she is the one that will suffer as well. There is no reason for his actions and no legal basis. I have been on this airport since 1978. I never had a problem with anyone. The previous manager, Don Sapovich, in fact helped me in many ways to help me expand my business and to draw new clients. When Stu Witt came to power, everything changed. For some reason, he put a bullseye on my back, and I don't know why. I believe he developed a plan to get rid of me long ago, but never saw a situation to exploit until last May. And he saw his opportunity, and ever since he has had his people spy on me and follow me and keep track of my every move. It's funny that no one else receives this kind of treatment. All I ask of the board at this time is to follow me. Reinstate my access so I can get back to work and finish our projects. Direct the DA to terminate any legal course of action. Return the F-100 so we can finish what we started. You have the power to do the right, this wrong, and to show the people of this airport that you control what happens and not him or his subordinates. Do the right thing. Thank you.
Tom Smith.
Tom Smith, thank you.
I've known him over 18 years. I've owned over 8 aircraft in that time. He's worked on them all. He's flown with me over the years. The last 15 years he's been the pilot for it. Never had any problem with his work or distrust with him. I do know he's been discriminated against here at the airport, and I have a little bit here and there because of being associated with him. I could go into that, but I won't, just stating that. But
If you're gonna say he's been discriminated against.
okay, back after we put the fuel tank in out here, memos come out, everybody with the fuel trucks got to get them off the airport. Nobody did it. So it went on, they got some pretty strong letters out saying any fuel trucks on the airport have to leave. So I removed mine. And every fuel truck that was on the airport at that time is still here, except for mine. When mine left, there was no more problem with fuel trucks on the airport. And that's my experience of discrimination because of being associated with the that was something else. Anyway, that's about it.
You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people who have worked on the aircraft, 5 of which have done at least volunteer work on it, are willing to continue to work as volunteers. They know the F-100. And Dean Soest obviously knows the F-100 and it has the paint to finish that up with. He purchased the paint just to do that. It's a project that needs to be done. The Pete Knights Veterans Home needs to have an F-100 in front of it. That's his aircraft that he flew in Vietnam. We'd like to be.
It's not running the board's business.
It's not, but it's part and parcel of what the dispute is here.
68,000. Why does he want to keep working?
He likes to finish what he started.
So he's planning on donating 68,000.
I understand that's what he does. He wants to get paid, obviously, for the parts and stuff he put in, the money he put into the parts and that type of thing. But he's not expecting to get the entire 68,000. No, he's not. If he gets half of that, he'd be happy. But the point is, it needs to be moved there. Number one. Number two, it's a civil dispute over the museum piece. It's not something that should subject him to being 86 from the airport and his livelihood, since that's where all his hangar is, where his equipment is, where his tools are, and where the aircraft that he's working on are. And that's why I don't see the reasoning for not having him have his access badges back. There's no reason at all. With that, I'll submit it.
Well, thank you for the presentation.
Thank you, and you're welcome.
I would want to leave this subject and go back to the agenda. And as you know, we do have a closed session item that we will be discussing this also. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
I realize today is not the day a decision will be made, but I would like the board to consider allowing him on the property. He has, I believe, 4 hangars out here that he's current on. He pays his rent on time, and he would have to be pretty stupid to do something ridiculous while everyone's watching him, filming him, and everything else, and he understands that. I would just like for him to have the opportunity to continue to conduct his business while his criminal case is pending. It is, of course, well known that a person's innocent until proven guilty. Whatever happens on the criminal case is going to happen. I'll take care of that part. But I would ask the board to consider allowing him to remain on the property here, conduct his business here in a lawful manner so that he can make a living. And that's basically all I have to